Uh, all right, so I'm listening to Vosh, which I'm not going to put Vosh in the title because I think that's baity, and I've done it far, far, far too much. I've got probably like 100 videos on the main channel about him. I'm putting it on the second channel of the clips. I found 2. I'll probably find a couple more. But it's funny to me, the whole bullshit, because Vosh is getting involved with the whole TYT versus Jimmy Dore bullshit. And of course, ultimately, he's on the TYT side of things, where it's like, oh, Aaron Mate is, is bad and this and that. The thing is, you can say what you want to. I mean, the gray zone, take it for what it is, right? I think that they're edgy folks who give lip service to lefty ideas. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, take it for what it is. I think that it is ridiculous to say the least, especially when Vosh has become like this huge Russia gator. And I think it's bullshit, to be honest with you. Well, he always has been, I think. He's always been a Russia gator, but he's like, oh, Russia got involved with our... They hold this same view. It's amazing to me how they'll be like, well, fascism simultaneously makes someone look strong and weak. It's the same thing with Russia. Oh, Russia has a small GDP, but they have so much influence. Ugh! And just the same thing with China. And it's amazing to me how people like him will bend the knee to U.S. hegemony and be like, well, actually, it's okay because, yeah, the U.S. did bad things, but it's better than China. It's better than Russia. It's better than Assad. And they're all just pitiful, pitiful people, in my opinion. These are all such pitiful people that I have mentioned far, far, far too much. But it's just, the simping for it is amazing to me. This is why people call Vosh a Fed. They call him a Fed because of bullshit like this, where he's like, well, actually, no, Russia did all those things. We just don't know the extent of what they did. No, we're never going to find out because it's a red herring. It's a red herring. It didn't really happen the way you think it did. Israel has more involvement in our election than Russia does. Next thing you're going to say China is going to do it. It's just like these people, This is why the left is in the shithole that it is. When you have morons like, well, more to the point, willing subjects like Vosh who are willing to talk about, Russia's bad, but the U.S. is bad too, where it's just like, and they'll say, what do you support about America? What do you support about the United States? LGBTQ rights, and we're getting better on things about how to treat people. And then, of course, a BLM member says, it's just pitiful. It really is. It's the same thing with this whole bullshit controversy about the Olympics with that with the hammer tosser lady, the POC gal who, when the American anthem was played, she turned the other way. And of course, people like Bo the Fifth Column were like, it's just a piece of cloth. Okay, well then stop hanging the American flag then. Stop having shirts with the American flag on it if it's just a piece of cloth. But he's not going to do that. And the thing is, it goes to show how neutered and how cucked. I'm so over the word cucked, but I'll say it nonetheless. The left is. And the right to a different degree as well, but for different reasons. The left is cucked because they still want the U.S. to remain as an entity. They just want it to be a little bit nicer, basically. Whereas the right wing imagines things like, oh, well, we have to have it, we want to go back to another time. We want it to go back to the 50s or something. And I've already said in videos today that says, yeah, the 50s were not that great. They led to the 60s and 70s. But the thing is that The power of U.S. hegemony runs so deep, and it goes to show that nothing will change with people like Vosh. Nothing will change with people like him. He can go ahead and virtue signal as much as he wants to about, how America bad, this and that, but he doesn't care. I think it's bullshit that they're bringing this up because of Kyle Kalinske, this and that. I've said it before, but I'm going to keep my distance from it. I think it's ridiculous. And of course, they'll still support Rojava. It's amazing to me. Like I say, I talked about, I put up that clip a while back, but that guy who claims to be a Maoist, he's like, well, keep white people, we're going to keep settlers out of our organization. And then you've got a fucking YPG flag behind you. And you're too stupid, or you're just too ignorant to realize that Rojava and the Kurds have been pawns of the United States since the 1980s. They have been pawns of the United States, probably longer than that. Rojava has had huge genocides of people. They've kicked out Shias. They've kicked out Christians. I know I've repeated that over and over. They've killed their rivals. And they have white folks fighting over there. You have settlers fighting for fighting for the Kurds. So you're too stupid to realize that. But, it's settlers. I would argue that the Kurds are settlers. I'm going to make that hot take. The Kurds are the settlers. It's so tiring in a lot of ways. And it goes to show that maybe, is that balkanization is the only way to answer the question. It really is. I've gone back and forth on this so many times, but it is. Balkanization is the only way. It is the only way. Let California be its own state then. Let us be its own country as a whole. Let them. You say that they're the fourth largest economy? Okay. Then go ahead and do that then. Go ahead and be a great country with people leaving, not as much as people say. I'll give it that. It's not as much as people say, but I think that, California should just become its own state. Why not? Or become its own country. Let it be its own country. If California is so cocky about it, then go right ahead. Same thing with, the Greater Idaho Project. Let them take those rural Oregon counties. The fact is that once this economy collapses, which I have a feeling it could happen, but to me, what really the real question is this, and this is a question I still ask. But what keeps this country united? What really unites it? What really keeps this country together? Is there something we can do for you?
Can you make my...
What keeps this country together? That's the question, isn't it? Is it money? Is it a common culture? Is it a fear of loss of revenue? What is it? What really keeps this country going as one thing? It's not the infrastructure. It's not the pay. What really keeps it together? I think that you'll get a lot of these hypocrites who, will love the U.S., but but they'll also love Israel. And like I said, I think that if you truly love the U.S., if you truly love something, you let it go. I've heard that before, right? Haven't you? The idea that if you truly love something, you should be able to set it free. That's what you should, or let it go. And it's the same thing with the U.S. If you truly love the United States, you will let it die with dignity. Let the United States as an idea, as a federal government, as anything else, let it die with dignity. That's how I feel about it. The U.S. does not even have half the history of Russia or of China. It doesn't even have half. The United States gives lip service to ideas. And maybe today's word of the day is lip service, by the way, but the U.S. has given a lot of lip to ideas that it will never care about. Because we see that this country does not care about anybody. They will give lip service to certain groups, yes. But they do not care about the country as a whole. No, they don't care. They simply want to continue to keep us as consumers so that we can fatten their pockets. And we want to keep the status quo. That's all they want. They want to be able to manipulate countries like Syria because they feel somehow that Assad is a threat, when in reality, Assad is a secular leader. That's why they can't call him a Wahhabist, because he's not. He was a secular leader of a secular country that allowed Christians and Muslims and everybody else to get along, roughly speaking. But there are many fake attacks that occurred in 2011, which were organized, I think, by the United States and Israel to allow Syria to fall into a civil war. Now, of course, they'll turn it back on Assad and say that's his fault. All those chemical attacks, all that, it's their fault. But but we know now, with Russia being involved, with Hezbollah being involved, we're going to be at this stalemate. Much the same way as we see the stalemate in Ukraine. But not similar. I'm just saying that they're both stalemates. We're going to have this continued stalemate until somebody just says, fuck it, let's get it done. I think that Russia will continue to help Assad as much as possible. And I think that Ukraine will be helped by the United States as much as possible. And Israel. So much as the same way as Russia will support the DPR and LPR. Eventually, something's got to give, in my opinion. The Russians are playing a very careful game, both in Syria and in Ukraine. The Russians are helping as much as they can to help reconquer territories, but they don't want to go to war with the U.S. So they're not going to go into that northeastern corridor. They're not going to go, or the corner, where U.S. forces are, where they have been practicing artillery strikes. So they know not to mess with stuff. Much the same ways they're not going to invade the rest of Ukraine. They're not going to do that. They know better. But they don't want to incorporate the DPR and LPR either. Because that would be hilarious, because ultimately you'd have the return to capitalism. You wouldn't have Soviet Union 2.0 as people like Russell Bentley talk about. But Russell Bentley, I just think he's full of shit. But that's just me. I'm not going to sit here and get into him. I've wasted enough time talking about him. But I feel like This is, the stalemate stuff will continue, but somehow U.S. hegemony is still going to be loved by millions of people, even though the U.S., has done all this bad stuff. They'll say, oh yeah, the U.S. has done bad stuff, but Russia and China bad because Russia got involved with our elections. They have an immense amount of power. I thought they were weak, though. I thought their GDP was smaller than that of the state of Texas. But they have massive amount of influence. The Russians pay for BLM. Really? And when you get this sort of attitude, you know that you're not talking with people who live in reality. They'll say, yeah, the U.S. did bad stuff, but they. So I don't have much faith in the various groups, but I do think some form of balkanization will occur. And that's what I wait for. And it could never happen. I'll be honest about it. It may never happen. But I do think that that is the best way to handle it. So, anywho, that was a long bit of, schizo ranting that I'm sure y'all are like, okay, I know I've heard this video before, and you probably have, but it's just, it's so sad to me when you see that, when you see all these folks that will be against Assad so deeply. It's just ridiculous, Fuck these people, honestly. But anywho, that's all I have to say. That hopefully y'all enjoy this. See you later, and a goodbye.